Good morning. Good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is MP DeVille, or you can call me Mary, or you can call me Patrice, whatever suits your fancy. Happy Friday. Happy September 23rd, 2016. It is the second day of the fall season, and it's feeling quite lovely outside, I must say. Although we are in Houston, and this is only the morning time, so come noontime, though, that change of weather can come like that. So anyhow, today is Friday, and of course, many of you who may not know me, my purpose is to help people overcome dysfunction, emotional dysfunction, verbal dysfunction, and physical dysfunction. And these cycles stem from family to family, from generation to generation, and many times they go unnoticed. So it is my duty and my purpose to help you all examine, recognize, and understand different types of dysfunction and proceed to try to implement changes and plans on how to change that situation. If you are in a dysfunctional situation, whether it is verbal abuse, physical abuse, or emotional abuse, if you and your partner or spouse cannot come to a consensus of reconciliation and how to change the actions that are transferring from one generation to the next generation, it is imperative that you leave the situation. Sometimes it is the best. Sometimes the best way to live a better, happy, fulfilled life, especially if you have children involved, is to simply remove yourself from the dysfunctional situation, because the last thing you want happening is for those same dysfunctional traits to pass down to your children, and then for your children to start repeating those same traits. It's not good. And if you don't recognize what the traits are, you can't change them. So I am here to help you do that. Me, MP. So today we're going to talk about emotional dysfunction. Emotional dysfunction is very prevalent, although very unrecognizable in many instances. You know, there can be a couple, a partnership, or whatever you may have, whatever involvement you have with another person. But if one person is being emotionally abusive to the other person, then those are red flags. If you can be emotionally abusive to someone, it can usually and probably turn into physical abuse and verbal abuse. So it is imperative that we recognize emotional abuse. Some forms of emotional abuse may simply be detachment. You know, you have no words for the other person. You really have no conversation. You really have nothing uplifting or inspiring to tell someone. Everything that comes out of your mouth is negativity. You ain't gonna be did. Your mama wasn't nothing, your daddy wasn't nothing, and you ain't gonna be nothing. That's emotional abuse, people. That's someone implanting negative beliefs and negative thoughts into your head. And for me, growing up, watching and enduring dysfunction within my own household, I harbored some of that emotional abuse that was being aimed at my mother, also was aimed at me. Subconsciously, I picked up those negative connotations. I picked up when I heard my mother being told she isn't worth anything, or her life will not amount to anything. You know, all of those things bounced off of her and bounced onto me, and I'm sure my other siblings as well. So whenever we put ourselves in a situation, we have to remain cognizant that whatever we are dealing with, or whatever, unfortunately, dealing with, whether we want to deal with it or not, if we have children, impressionable children, enduring this, it can bounce off of us onto our children. So just because something is being relayed to one person, it does not mean that that other person is not absorbing it. And that's usually what happens in many dysfunctional families. You experience other people dealing with verbal abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and more times than many, those children that are seeing their parents and siblings and relatives and grandmothers and grandfathers go through this physical abuse, many times it is carried on to them, and then they carry it on to their children. So like I say, generational cycles is real. It is real, and we have to pay attention to it. And like I say, emotional abuse is very, very scarring and very triggering. It can lead us feeling insecure. It can lead us feeling inadequate. It can lead us to feel incapable. It can lead us to harbor insecurities. And once we learn where those insecurities and incapabilities stem from, we can change the trajectory of our lives. So for me, growing up and understanding why I felt a certain way about myself during certain times, I was able to understand that that was not my thinking. You know, my insecure thinking, my thoughts of incapabilities was not my own thoughts. They were thoughts that were embedded into my psyche while I was growing up. And it wasn't until I grew up and I realized that, hey, this is not right. It's not right for me to do. It wasn't right when I saw my mother, when I saw that it happened to my mother. So, you know, connecting the dots was a part of me figuring out how to resolve and how to stop dysfunction. So I am so happy to say that I give God all the praise, because He gave me strength and ability and security and persistence and know-how to understand what was going on in my life and in my mother's life, so that perhaps I can stop it during my life, so that those same traits are not passed down to my children. So once again, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, and physical abuse, they're all forms of dysfunction. Unhealthy dysfunction. Now, the purpose for us is to recognize those different forms of dysfunction, reconcile them, and then change our direction in life. Not for our sake, but for our children's sake also. So, like I said, pay attention to any types of emotional dysfunction. If you're in a relationship, pay attention to how your spouse or your partner treats you, responds to you, addresses you, nurtures you, or not. And if you feel like, as an adult, as a person, that you are missing certain emotional actions that are allowing you to become closer and more communicative with your partner or spouse, that's great. That's good, healthy emotions. But when you have, like I say, criticism and negativity thrown at you, those can become emotional dysfunctions that can harbor your growth. Okay? So let's just think about that today, and let's focus on having a more healthier and sustainable, fruitful, and vibrant future, not only for us, but for our children. Okay? So, once again, thank you for joining me. Have a glorious, glorious weekend. When I see you again, we will be talking about some of the traits of physical abuse and verbal abuse. Okay? So until next time, I'll see you then, and keep your eyes open and watch out for those red flags. Bye.